he's low riding down the Colfax, and we're up there, let one go, and it hit the windshield, and I mean it hit, and it sounded like a gunshot when it hit. And this guy, he just jumps out of the car, and he's ducking for cover, and I mean he thought he was getting shot at.
Welcome to Achieving Failure, a podcast that gives you a break from politics, popular trends, and brings you good old-fashioned life stories that made us who we are today. Sit back and relax with your host, Chris, as he brings you another exciting adventure on how to achieve failure.
Real quick, I have to do a proper intro because that's what I'm doing now. I figured it out. No, I figured this whole thing out. Pretty much what I'm going to start doing is just record and we'll figure it out. And then I'll just do the intro and then I'll figure it out from there.
Kind of like your life.
Yeah. So welcome to Achieving Failure. We got a new episode. We got Joey and his dad, Ralph, back with a PH.
Idiot.
Because... So Joey's been yelling at me because every time I've been uploading the first couple videos of you, I forgot how to spell your name, so I've been doing it R-A-L-P-H.
No, you've been doing R-A-L-F.
Oh, R-A-L-F?
Yeah.
I said, I don't know, whatever.
I work for a guy that he used to write on my paychecks, R-A-L-F. So what the fuck is this? I said it's R-A-L-P-H. This went on for 6 months. That was the guy that owned the smog place there by DMV.
So, yeah, for the longest time, I've been doing it wrong. And I go, well, guess what, Joey? You just found your new guaranteed job as a spell check and grammar consultant because everything I post, it's like, were you drunk when you posted this? I was like, no, that's just how my brain works. I think it looks right.
You can't spell for shit.
Like dyslexia has shit on me. Like that.
I heard a story growing up about my dad wrecking the captain's car. That was a pretty good story.
In the military?
No, when he was on the police department.
How'd you do that?
It was colorful. We were working a 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. shift. It was called the morning shift. And it was one-man cars. And it was after probation and everything. And anyway, all of us were young guys. You know, most of us veterans. And in fact, the whole shift of the young guys we were all veterans. Anyway, we used to get bored at night. We'd check our businesses and everything. And this one particular night when I came to work, the car that I was relieving, the car was damaged and there wasn't a car for me. And that day they delivered the captain's brand new car from Chrysler, and it came from the police garage with the radio and everything. It was a totally unmarked car. It just had spotlights and then lights in the grill. So anyway, the lieutenant says, "I'll just take the captain's car." And the sergeant says, "Oh, you know, you wrecked that. We wrecked that car. He's gonna come down on us like stink on shit." And no. Okay, here's the keys. You take it. The car had maybe 25 miles on it. So anyway, I go through and do my stuff that night, and then we're all bored. So we all congregate at this one park, and we decide we're going to play tag with the cars and chase each other. And
how do you play tag with cars? You just bump into each other? Or?
Yeah, you run up and bang bumpers.
Brand new Chrysler.
And it was a brand new Plymouth Satellite, and you know, 4-door. It's like a 4-door Roadrunner. Anyway, we're playing tag, and then we decide we're kind of bored with that. We're afraid that, you know, we might bend up the captain's car. So then we decided to play hide and go seek. So there was a school that was on an irregular lot, and the fencing was such that you could literally race around this school. There was a lot with pebbles and stuff for playing kickball and all that, and then there was pavement, and you had to go around the poles for the tether balls and all that, and in and out of the swing sets. So we're chasing each other around there, and I'm in front of all these other guys. I'm blowing past them. And I come around the corner and it's really dark out. I mean, it's just black. And I come tearing around there and there was a stub wall about 3 feet high. And I didn't see it. And I was going to go down. I thought it was a sidewalk in front of the school. I was going to go down there and hide, not hit the brake light. So anyway, I go tearing down there and I didn't see that stub wall. And I hit it with the bottom of the bumper. And it pushed the full front end of the car up in the air. And it popped the motor mounts on the front for the motor. And it pushed the whole engine up in the air. And it even bowed the hump up that goes over the automatic transmission, and it stopped on a dime. And I mean, I hit the windshield, and I mean, big chunk of hair and skin in the windshield.
Jesus.
And so we had to call for a frickin' tow, man. And they're going, how the hell did this happen? When the sergeant shows up. And I said, I was checking this school to see if it had any open doors, and I didn't see the wall. And he says, it looks like you were doing 35 miles an hour or 40. I says, yeah, I was.
That was the end of that car.
Yeah, it totaled it. And I got called into the accident review board a couple of weeks later. And I was, barely off probation. I think maybe it was in my second year. And that's why we were all in the morning shift. There was either the really old guys or the really young guys that couldn't hold a good shift. So anyway, I get in that accident review board, and sure enough, one of the guys on the accident review board was good friends with our neighbor that I grew up. That actually he was a sergeant on the police department, but he'd been there since the 40s. And he was good friends with my dad. So anyway, I sailed through that one. I got a written reprimand, which stayed in my file for 6 months, and that's it. Didn't get any docked, any pay. And they said he's just a zealous young officer trying to do a good job, and that's why our decision is such. And yeah, and then I also remember when about the same time, all of us guys were on that morning shift. We get bored, and we realized that the new Belvederes or the satellites wouldn't fit on the railroad tracks, to drive down the railroad tracks. But the Belvedere, which was the one that had the bigger engine, as a matter of fact, it was really a good police car. Anyway, you could get on the railroad tracks, and it had the track of the car was wide enough and the tires were wide enough that you could get on the railroad tracks and then take your hands off the steering wheel, and you could go 40 miles an hour and go right down the railroad tracks. And then when you come to the next street, you just turn off on the street. Well, anyway, this one sergeant that was working the night I wrecked that first car, his name was, well, I better not say it. Anyway, he had a hard on for us. He wanted our asses bad, and he was a younger guy and a younger sergeant, and he was a Dudley Do-Right, So anyway, we're down there. We're riding down the railroad tracks. A line of us, 3 of us, and he's got a brand new satellite. Just like the captain's car that I totaled. So we're going down the railroad tracks, and we see his ass coming, and we just black our headlights out and everything, and we're going like hell. And he decides he's going to chase us and catch us. And
He's chasing on the railroad tracks?
Yeah, he's backing up and going forwards and looking out the window and holding his door open to make sure he's on the tracks. And he takes off, and that thing came right off the tracks when he hit about 20 miles an hour, tore the oil pan off there. And the next day at roll call, we were gone. I mean, we found out later what happened, but when we heard him call for a tow, we were all laughing. We were down at Denny's having coffee by then. And anyway, the next day at roll call, he says, I know who you guys are. You're out there jacking around, and you cost me a car, and I've got to answer for it. And You guys are riding down those railroad tracks, and I want to know how you did it. They couldn't figure out that it was two different wheel widths on the cars. The Satellite was more of a poofy car. It had a 318 in it, and where the Belvedere's had a 383 Magnum in them. And if we'd have been on the open street, we could outrun him anyway. But anyway, they took those cars away finally. After they got 70,000 miles on them, they junked them, and we got all satellites and one exhaust pipe, and it sounds like a cream puff. But yeah, those were two good ones. Can you think of anything else I didn't tell you guys last time? I was thinking about a couple of things in the helicopter that I don't think I told you guys, but
Ball bearings and wrist rockets.
oh yeah, yeah. I was assigned to a unit that they gave us these little Honda motorcycles. They weren't really motorcycles. I'd call them motorbikes. They were like 300 cc's, and they put a little chrome box on it, and they put a windshield and put police on it, and but it was nothing but a Honda 300. And anyways, they assigned us 2x2, and this guy that I met when I went to that unit to work it was a special unit. Anyway, he was kind of just to let you know what he was like in Vietnam. His job is to go out in the jungle for 2 or 3 days and kill Vietnamese officers when they came by with piano wire. That's what he said. He said he'd sit there for 24 hours, and one would come by and he'd jump out, put that wire around his neck, and just kill him.
And that was his job? Like, that was his only job?
Yeah, he'd come back to camp and say, "Yeah, I got one. Here's his ear." Oh, and anyway, this guy was not a big guy, tall, but he was built like a fire plug, and he wasn't fat. And I mean, he was built, he had big arms and everything, and he could hit somebody one punch, and the guy would go down like a ton of bricks. I mean, just boom, and he'd do it so fast that you wouldn't even see him hit him almost. And anyway, that's the guy I was working with. Well, I had a good friend that we bought our race cars from that had a transmission shop, only on standard transmissions. And he worked on big truck transmissions and stuff too, as long as they were standard. Anyway, he had a bunch of ball bearings that they'd taken out of ones that were so damaged. So they kept the ball bearings, and some of them were about, what's that look like? About 3/4 of an inch, about that big. And they were just chrome, and they were ball bearings, and they were heavy. Well, Harry, that was the name of the guy that owned the transmission shop. He says, "Get yourself a wrist rocket." He says, "Here, I got one here. Well, I'll show you." This is one day at his shop, and I wasn't working. And he says, "Watch this." And he takes that thing and he let that ball bearing go, and he hit a dumpster lid, and it knocked the lid. The lid was on like a stand thing holding it up so the people could throw stuff in it. He hit that lid, and that lid flew back like somebody hit it with a rock. I mean, and so we both go out and get wrist rockets. So on East Colfax, where all the pimps and those types of folks, it's kind of a seedy area at night. We climbed up on top of this liquor store, and we waited. And here comes this pimp mobile, Cadillac, all lowered down. And we could see this guy in there with the furry dashboard. I shit you not. And he's low riding down the Colfax, and we're up there, let one go, and it hit the windshield. And I mean, it hit, and it sounded like a gunshot when it hit. And this guy, he just jumps out of the car, and he's ducking for cover. And I mean, he thought he was getting shot at. And there's a lot of cars on the street. It's 4 lanes, and it's not real fast speed limit, but still people are on it. And it was winter time too. And so this guy decides he's going to run around the building. He's thinking they must have done that from the building. Somebody's shooting at me. So he comes running around there. Of course, we got the police bikes hidden. He comes around the corner and nails him. Boom. Down he goes. Well, they had a dumpster back there. So he picks him up, throws him in the dumpster with his furry white coat and all this in this freaking dumpster with nasty trash and everything. And he takes something off the ground and puts it through the or clasp so that the guy couldn't get out when he woke up. And so then we get on our bikes and we leave. You know, his car's still sitting out in the street. Well, they towed the car. They said somebody abandoned this car in the street. So they towed the car, and then this guy was in the dumpster, and we went home that night at, I don't know, 1:00 in the morning. We rode our motorcycles home, and he spent the night in the dumpster, I guess. I never heard any more about it. But he was known to all of us that, you know, he was one of these pimps that would beat the women up, you know, that worked for him. So he got what he deserved. So did I tell you guys about in the helicopter throwing the bowling ball and the golf ball out of the helicopter on the highway that was under construction?
No.
And did I tell you about the nudist camp that we used to fly over in the daytime? Well, you know, last time I talked to you, I think I told you a couple of helicopter stories, and there's a couple that I was thinking about that were really funny. And one of them was when we were flying the day shift in the helicopter. You know, there'd be two of us in it outside of the city of Denmark.
I took a picture of the helicopter that he had framed. I'm gonna send it to you, so maybe you can.
Well, anyway, on the day shift, you still go out and you fly two-hour flights in an 8-hour day, and a lot of times you do school demos and things like that where you land in schools that they scheduled for you to land in their schoolyard, and kids can come out and, you know, they can see you guys and, you know, the guys in their flight uniforms and then of course see the helicopter. But you had to watch them because the helicopter was, the way the exhaust was, it was turbocharged because at a city that's got altitude, you had to have a turbocharger just to be able to hover in the summer. So you know about that. Anyway, um, out west of town, in the base of the mountains, there was a lake that was a private lake, and people would go out there, and all it had was a fence around it, and these people would go down there, and it was a nude lake and it was all these hippies, you know, it was like in the early 70s and mid 70s. And they're all out there, and of course they're on their blankets, and they're all naked, and the guys and the girls, and you know, people around selling, I guess, pot and stuff. And, you know, who knows? Anyway, you couldn't get in there unless you were a member. So, but there was like maybe 40, 50 of them out there this one day. So we come flying across, and we decide we're going to go down and get a closer look at the girls. So we start going down there, and these hippie guys start standing up, flipping us a bird, and pretty soon the girls are doing it, and then they start throwing shit at the helicopter. Of course, they can't hit it. So we decide, well, you guys want to play dirty? We're gonna enjoy, you know, give you a little enjoyment. So we get down real low, and we're blowing their blankets all over hell. Fucking, I mean, there's sand flying. They're getting sand blasted. Probably girls are getting sand in the crack of the ass, and I mean, we blew everything all over the place, and then we took off. We never did hear a word about it.
So there's a new Instagram page that I follow because it's actually funny as hell. So it's a guy who now I think he's out of LA or something, but he flies his drone around and he flies over homeless people and it just pisses them off. He was flying over like pimps and hookers and everything, and they're trying to throw shit. They're trying to hit this fucking drone.
Sent that
And
to
he
you on
keeps yeah, I
Instagram.
think so. And he's flying up and down. And dude, there's one now. The guy's pulling his gun out and he's shooting at the fucking drone. So not only are you like discharging your weapon like in public, like who the hell even knows where this bullet's going? And but did you speaking of which, Joey, did you tell your dad about the little accidental find? That was a you one, right?
No, I didn't find this one.
Yeah, that wasn't you.
That was Felix, wasn't it?
So we had a plane come in, and pilot reported lightning strike. He said, I saw it, felt it, passengers felt it and saw it, lightning hit this airplane. So when that happens, we have to do a huge inspection. You got to look over every inch of the airplane, look for holes and, the entrance and the exit of the lightning bolt.
And it's usually not hard to find. It's like a black burnt hole.
Yeah. The entrances are kind of hard because when you see lightning, it looks huge, right? From a distance, it's big and bright. Looks like it's, about the size of a tree trunk. When it hits an airplane, it's just very tiny little, looks like somebody that poked the metal. It doesn't go all the way through, but it's a little like rock chip almost. The exit is the big hole where the lightning travels through the airframe and it exits somewhere. That's usually where the big hole is. And it's usually in some sort of composite or, the static wicks do their job. But anyway, two of the mechanics on day shift go out and start the inspection. And they're out there maybe an hour. And I hear the radio cue. And they call the leads desk and they go, hey, you might want to send somebody out here. And the lead goes, yeah, what do you got? Well, I don't really want to say it over the radio. Well, we kind of need to know what we're looking at. There's a bullet hole in the airplane. Dead silence. 4 minutes. He cues up the radio. He goes, did I hear you right? You said there's a bullet hole in the airplane? He goes, yeah. Yep. Plain as day. Bullet went through the airplane.
And I have the pictures. I'll show you the pictures. But the only problem is with this is just for the sake of like security and job wise and everything. This is one of the pictures I can't actually. Maybe I could show the inside of the plane because you can't see you can't obviously see the exterior, but you could see the entrance and where it got lodged into. I could show the size of the bullet and I could show where it got lodged in the insulation.
Did I send you the picture I took of the bullet?
Yeah, I got pictures of everything.
Because I sent a good picture.
Yeah, I got pictures of everything.
I got a picture of it next to the measuring tape to show how big it is. Anyway, this was, I think it was somewhere around the first week of January, before we hit that week mark of January. Where the bullet hole was, I mean, you would think, somebody shot at an airplane, it'd be at the bottom of the airplane somewhere. It was just to the side of the crown of the airplane. So this bullet had traveled from the ground and came down.
On its way down.
So we were thinking, it was parked somewhere overnight during New Year's, and somebody had, been celebrating, and the bullet came down and it went through the airplane. It broke through the aluminum skin of the plane, but it didn't damage any of the insulation. It didn't hit any of the stuff where you're sitting in an airplane, you look at the ceiling and you couldn't tell that something happened, and there was no damage on the inside of the airplane. So that's how we knew, it didn't have much velocity, but it had enough to make it through that thin skin of the airplane. So we figured this plane had been flying for 5 or 6 days.
Nobody saw it.
Yeah, with a hole in it. And the only reason we saw it,
Lightning strike.
because we were doing the lightning strike inspection. And it turned into a fiasco. I mean, it was a big deal. We had one of our leads saying, oh, we got to contact the ATF, the FBI, the FAA. They all have to know about this. We have to take apart the whole inside of the airplane to look for the slug. And, you know, to pull bins down and ceiling panels and stuff, that's a couple hours worth of work. So they finished the lightning strike inspection, and then they started pulling the bin down in the area that it was, and sure enough, there it was. It was a completely perfect,
Intact.
I mean, it didn't have any damage. It didn't have any deformation. It looked like a perfect bullet that you just took out of the casing and had it, you know, right there in your hand. I mean, you could see the rifling on it and everything. And
Went right through the skin.
I'd never seen anything like that before. And now I know. I mean, it really doesn't take much to
Puncture the skin.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a spot in between, what do they call it, spars? Or
Yeah, spars and ribs. What's crazy is that none of the pilots that flew this airplane in the past few days have complained or written up a single pressurization issue. I mean, this hole was probably, what do you think, a half an inch?
3/8 maybe.
It was honestly enough to, it had to have caused something. To simply say there was no whistling, no pressurization. You're in a fucking pressurized cabin. It's right above the overhead bin. Like, it's insane that no issues were had from that. And unfortunately, I can't find a picture. So
I'll send them to you. But
well, do you have them? Show your dad on the. Show your dad real quick.
well, I sent one to him too.
Yeah, I've got one on my phone, but my phone's out my truck.
We were all talking about this, and some of the older mechanics were saying that
Happens all the time.
well, they had never dealt with this before, you know, a bullet hole or anything, but they were saying the older 300s that the company owned, they'd be doing a walk around and they would see like fuzz, looked like, you know, like almost like a piece of tape kind of sticking out of the fuselage. And they thought it was, you know, grease or something, and they go to wipe it, and it's like, what the hell is that? Well, the older 300s were cracking. The aluminum was cracking and causing, you know, pressure to leave the cabin, and the insulation was plugging that hole. So we came to the determination that the only reason that this hadn't been written up as an issue is because every time that cabin would pressurize and it'd look for a place to go, as that vacuum was pulling that pressurization out, it'd pull the insulation out with it, and it would plug that hole throughout the flight. We're thinking that this is probably a 7.62 round, you know, an AK round, because it was much bigger than an AR round.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. For more info, find us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you have a story you'd love to share, shoot us an email at aflvpodcast@gmail.com. That's AF, Achieving Failure, LV, Las Vegas, podcast@gmail.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you all next time.